Well, good afternoon. My first task is simply to thank, and she's named and Kirpa named all our partners. But particularly, I'd like to single out Dan Shields and the U.S. Embassy. It's always a tricky thing to talk about another country's government when your own government talks about interference in domestic affairs. So, luckily the American country as a whole has a slightly different attitude to this. Secondly, I think it's a remarkable thing how Dan Shields managed to organize for Hillary Clinton to come to Asia at the same time we're here. And so, in a sense, provides us a very pertinent time to think about the Obama administration here in Asia. It is a very different thing for the Secretary of State of America to be in Asia as her first visit abroad and to Southeast Asia. She's just across the water in Indonesia. And I think this afternoon she will visit the ASEAN Secretariat. But I also want to thank another person, and these are the Eisenhower Fellows, represented here by David Lim, who's hiding in a corner somewhere. David said he couldn't be here initially, but he has managed to turn up. The Eisenhowers, which I'm one, really a very small grouping, created by, again, the generosity of America to seed in the whole world fellowships for people from all over the world, including faraway Singapore, to simply spend 1 or 2 months getting to know the country, wandering through, talking to people about various issues. And at various times from the 60s onwards, early 70s onwards, Singapore has been a beneficiary of this. I also like to single out, of course, our host, not just Kirpa, but Woody Hunter, who's going to serve on the panel as well. Woody reminds me again of the deep connectivity between America and Singapore. We get a lot of foreign CEOs, and sometimes, of course, like any good Singaporean, I wonder why we need so many. But off and on, we really discover some with talent and perspectives, which I think, to be fair, no Singaporean has. And I think Woody has really been one of them. His stewardship of SMU coming in really has been an inspiration. The last thing I should say, of course, is about the SIA. The SIA, of which some of you are members, is, as Dawn Deckel said earlier, Singapore's oldest think tank. And in some ways, its only independent think tank. Everybody else seems to be headed by an ambassador or former ambassador. We do not claim to be, sort of oppositionists or completely independent in this sense, but we are in this, very much willing to look at things differently. And so in this hall, we've had talks about climate change, and it was not then fashionable. We have been a leader in talking about human rights and governance in Southeast Asia. And another issue that we have been focusing on, which I think will gain prominence over the next months, is the interest in Southeast Asia of beginning to use nuclear energy and to question mark the safety, economics, and environmental sense of doing that thing here in Southeast Asia. So the SIA depends on its members, its volunteers, of which Dawn is one and so am I, as well as its rather limited, I was about to say small staff, but that means they're all like, gen size. A very small secretariat that keeps things running. Maybe I could ask the secretariat team who are here just to put up their hands or stand up if I could. I really don't acknowledge them as often as I should. They're the ones who really keep everything running, especially when I'm not here. So that's Andy. Well, I'm the rest of you standing. Order you to stand. Okay, so that's what chairmen do. Thank you all very much. And lastly, of course, I want to thank you for taking your time. I know it's always busy here in Singapore. School life is busy. Work life is even probably worse. So we appreciate your time and your interest. And with that, welcome you to what I think will be a very interesting discussion about a very important phenomena, not only for Americans, but really, not only for Singaporeans, but really for Asia and the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Now I'd like to introduce to you our keynote speaker for tonight. That's Mr. Dan Shields. Dan Shields has been in Singapore for about 4 years. He was the Deputy Chief of Mission under our former ambassador, Patricia Horbold. He's now the acting ambassador until Obama makes up his mind on who's going to be the new ambassador for Singapore. And he's graciously agreed to come here tonight and give us a keynote on what he thinks about President Obama and some of the changes he sees. So Dan, please.
Well, thanks very much, Dawn, and thank you, Simon, Kirpal, everybody. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here with all of you tonight. I'd particularly like to thank Dawn for not pointing out that those devices that you've been issued tonight can actually administer electric shocks to boring speakers. So please refrain from doing that. The reason that it's such a pleasure and honor for me to be here tonight is it's an opportunity to talk about our new president, Barack Obama. Tonight we stand just 4 weeks into the new administration, but already in this brief period we've seen several major shifts in U.S. policy. It's still early days and we need to be patient to see what the future brings. But I'd like to say a few words tonight about some of the pressing challenges that the Obama administration faces and some of the paths forward that the Obama administration has begun to pursue, particularly with regard to U.S. relations with the Islamic world. There are really three themes I'd like to touch on. First, Southeast Asia, then the economy, and then U.S. relations with the Islamic world. Starting out on Southeast Asia, during the presidential transition and President Obama's first month in office, the question that Singaporeans have asked me most often is, what does this mean for Singapore? What does this mean for Southeast Asia? And I tell them that in most areas, U.S. interests didn't suddenly change on January 20th. So in most areas, U.S. policy probably will not change either. The United States is still very appreciative of all Singapore's contributions in the political, military, and security realm. We're grateful for Singapore's work in Iraq and in Afghanistan. We still value our strong trading relationship with Singapore under the Free Trade Agreement. We look forward to a year of productive talks as Singapore hosts APEC. And in this regard, we are working toward President Obama's first visit to Singapore in November for the APEC leaders meeting. The United States and Singapore have long enjoyed close relations, and we expect this relationship to continue. Aside from President Obama's personal connection to Asia, from his years of growing up in Indonesia, the United States has a growing appreciation of Asia's increasingly important role in the world. One significant demonstration of this recognition is, as Simon mentioned, the fact that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has decided to make her first trip to Asia. This is a break with recent tradition. Generally in recent years, Secretaries of State have made their first trip to Europe or perhaps the Middle East. But Secretary Clinton is coming here to Asia, and she's in Indonesia right now. So I think we can take this as a sign of the level of commitment that President Obama and Secretary Clinton will pursue with regard to Asia, and that they will continue a policy of active U.S. engagement toward Asia. The next issue I'd like to address is the economy. This is the issue that seems to be at the top of everyone's mind these days. And as President Obama said in his inaugural address, we are in the midst of a crisis. Here in Singapore, we know all too well that the world economy is facing difficult times. There's turmoil that threatens the prosperity that the world has enjoyed for decades. President Obama believes that if we do not act quickly, the recession could linger for years, and that this could undermine the competitive edge that America enjoys, that has undergirded U.S. prosperity, and that has allowed the United States to be an important engine for economic growth around the world. In order to address the recession, President Obama has made the economy his top priority. He worked with Democrats and Republicans in Congress to pass a stimulus package that will get the American economy moving again. One note for those of you who may be more familiar with parliamentary systems than the U.S. system is that, of course, the U.S. government is built on a principle of checks and balances. Power is divided among different branches of government. So under our system, it is the Congress that has the power to pass laws, and the President can either sign them or veto them. This means that while President Obama provided leadership with regard to the stimulus package, the end result was a negotiated agreement that enjoys the support of the Congress. This division of power is important to remember when we consider some of the more controversial aspects of the stimulus package, such as the Buy America provisions that have been covered so extensively in the press.